Yo, welcome to a new show called Villain Talk. We're going to focus on some of my favorite bad guys from pop culture, talk about what movie or TV show they're from, and a little bit about the real person behind the character. Without further ado, let's jump into episode 1. We're going to talk about one of my favorite shows, Scooby Doo, Where Are You? Particularly season 1, episode 16, A Night of Fright is No Delight, starring probably some of the first villains I remember liking, the Green Ghosts, aka the Phantom Shadows. So who are these guys? On the surface, they're haunting a mansion owned by the late Colonel Beauregard Sanders from World War II. There's not really a concrete backstory on these ghosts. They are wearing green hoods and kind of have chains rattling around their wrists sometimes. Maybe they were slaves or prisoners on the island back in the day and are now trying to scare everyone off the island who is trying to reside there for whatever reason. I think the reason I liked these guys so much as a kid is because they looked cool. Their green, kind of blue, cloaked appearance with their hidden face, with the orange eyes and mouth, the rattling chains, and the overall spookiness. I just thought was really cool. And since I was younger and watching Scooby Doo for the first time, they just kind of stood out for me. Probably the coolest thing about them is what I'll call the Phantom Shadow ability, where they appear earlier in the episode as the actual shadow, where you can still see the details of their face and stuff somehow, but they're also just shadows and not physically there in the room. Rewatching the episode, I just really like the vibe of this scene of one of them going down the hallway for a second, where you just get the 1970s vibe of hand-drawn cartoons, and you can see he is translucent just going down the hallway, and it's just pretty cool. It's a little hard to make out. This is the only picture I could find, but the concept art for the Phantom Shadow alongside the actual Green Ghost itself. So they've got the guy in the cloak and the actual shadow as a separate concept. I think that's cool. Scooby and the gang end up encountering these green ghosts because they are summoned to Colonel Beauregard Sanders' island as Scooby was named an heir in the Colonel's will. Why, you might ask?
Scooby Doo had rescued old Beauregard from a fish pond several years before.
Of course. Once inside the mansion, we're introduced to the 4 other relatives as well as the Colonel's lawyer, Cosgood Creeps, who plays a message from the Colonel on an old phonograph. Fun fact, the Colonel's voice is the same guy who does Shaggy's voice, as well as one of the other cousins, as well as the sheriff at the end of the episode. As the phonograph plays, we hear Colonel Beauregard Sanders describe how he has a $1 million inheritance that he is going to split amongst all the relatives that are able to spend one night in his haunted mansion. So it's not long before the gang sets a trap, captures the ghosts, and discovers their true identities. Unmasking the villains reveals them to be Cosgood Creeps, of course, and his lawyer partner, Cuthbert Crawls. And just some fun facts about this episode itself. It was the first episode to actually air in 1970. This is also an episode where the Mystery Machine is entirely absent, although it's not absent from my socks. This is the first episode to show multiple members of the gang wearing different outfits. We got a couple of them in their pajamas. And I love this one. Scooby's running from the ghost in the beginning of the episode here and crashes through this door and leaves a Yogi the Bear-shaped hole. Now, I'd like to do my own unmasking of the villain here. Cosgood Creeps was voice acted by a man named Hal Smith. Hal Smith has lots of credits throughout his life for being a voice actor and an actor, and I thought I'd just go throughout his timeline and pick out the ones that I thought were cool. In the late 30s into the early 40s, he was a DJ in New York for about 7 years. After that, he was working in special services during World War II before he moved across the country to Hollywood and was an announcer on a Warner Brothers radio station. One of my favorite tidbits I found out was he was the Pancake Man for a show called The Pancake Man, sponsored by IHOP in the late 60s. Most people probably remember Hal Smith from his role on The Andy Griffith Show, where he played the town drunk Otis Campbell. Now, what's interesting about this is Hal Smith actually never drank at all in his whole life, despite playing this character that was the town drunk. He actually used his Otis Campbell character in some Mothers Against Drunk Driving ads. And there was also an episode of The Andy Griffith Show where Andy and Barney convince Otis to get rid of his new car so he doesn't hurt people while driving it while intoxicated. He was also a guy who narrated a lot of the Disney sing-along records in the 70s. And like I said, he's got so many credits for being a voice actor and a presence on all these cartoons that in the late 1970s, he played this character called the Cartoon King on The Brady Bunch. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Stay tuned. I'll probably be making more episodes about my favorite bad guys.
We fooled that goofy ghost this time. He'll never find us up here.